Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Jason.
Hello, everyone.
And Stoney.
Hello.
And you got me today with this guest.
I got you?
Yeah,
I got you.
You got me good today with this guest.
Oh, it was fun to watch your face.
Yeah. He set up this elaborate ploy thinking it was somebody else and all this stuff, and I was like, cool, it's no big deal. Jason was out of town, so we had to change the time that we normally record.
Yes.
So everything's a little different, and I was just like, it's no big deal. So
Just got back from Gulf Shores.
Go ahead.
I had a great lunch with our guests today and told him the subject of our next episode and the passion and information that he had. I said, why don't you come do the show and we'll play a joke on Ian over there and mess with him. And welcome, X-Man, back to the show.
Yeah.
My pronouns are X and man.
Okay,
So
there
glad
we
to
go.
be here. Thanks for having
Man
me.
is back.
Yes,
Good to be
in the
with you.
house.
Yeah. The last time that you were on this show was our 100th episode.
That's
Yes.
right. Yep.
And I want to say now we're at 100 and what was it?
60-something?
155, 6, something like that.
Something like
I don't
that.
have the numbers right now.
That's incredible. That's just even hard to even fathom.
yeah.
I mean, this thing started out and now it's 160 episodes in. That's awesome.
3
And you guys
years.
are doing great,
Yeah.
great stuff. I've had the chance to listen to a few of the episodes, quite a few actually, and you're doing great. Really
And
interesting.
once again, we have a studio audience, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
kind of fun.
Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of neat.
Yeah. So, what do we have on the table for today?
Well, we've been talking about a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and the 15-minute city seems to be popping back up in a lot of conversation and in our episodes and in the world right now. Saudi Arabia is building the Mile City, which is a 15-minute city. Portland is basically modeled after what they want to be the next 15-minute city. And then all of the stuff in Maui, with them wanting to turn Maui into a 15-minute city island type thing for all the ultra wealthy to go to in case the crap hits the fan in November.
Yeah.
So I just thought it might be kind of fun to talk about the 15-minute city. And when you and I were sitting there having some coffee, you seemed to like, wow.
Well, you saw it at the Olympics in Paris. I mean, that mayor is obviously, very dedicated to that. And, I think 15-minute cities are interesting because while there's a lot to be concerned about, I see some benefits. I mean, you've got the fact that, that it kind of promotes exercise and walking and things like that. I mean, so green spaces, I'm all for that kind of stuff. But I have to tell you, there's plenty to be concerned about too.
Yes.
Well, yeah, with any new concept, there's always built-in fear.
Yeah.
I want to at least touch on where did this whole concept come from. Carlos Moreno,
Yes.
French Colombian urbanist. He teaches at a college in Paris. And he's the one who brought up this concept of the 15-minute city, which, as X-Man mentioned, I'm very much like the concept of a 15-minute city.
Yeah.
Because the amount of time sitting in traffic
Oh, yeah.
to get to our areas that we need to go, I feel like we have taken a hit to our quality of life. This really came about. If you think about it, you think of cities built before the advent of the car.
Right.
How do you think they were built?
Right.
They were built where you could walk everywhere
Yeah.
or ride a horse, right?
Yeah. Every town had a strip.
Yeah.
And you lived as close or as far away from the strip as you wanted.
So, I mean, I know we're going to go into a lot of dark
Oh, yeah.
areas, and I know Stoney is going to really kind of go down that rabbit hole. And there is a lot.
Us?
There is some concern. I think if you marry these concepts with other concepts, and I think that's where the issue comes in. So, be interesting to see how this plays out.
Oh, definitely. I'm excited.
For Wolf, this ought to be right down your alley because as much of a tech and as much as you embrace technology and stuff, there's got to be some attractive things
It's
about it.
I feel the same way that you guys have already stated. Is I like the idea of it, like the concept of it. I like the potential good that it can do. But like you just said as well, there's a lot of stuff that also kind of comes along with that, regulations and a lot of other things that kind of make it more concerning. And
fundamentally, this really hits at the idea of what it means to be American. And the concept of, we're still grounded in the idea of I'm going to blaze the trail and I'm going to go live on the frontier. And, I don't want nobody, I want elbow room and, all these things that kind of what made America, America. And I think, of course, this concept's worldwide. So in different parts of the world, it's a whole different experience. So you have a lot of people that are living in very, very close proximity to each other, and I can see where a lot of this would really come up.
Well, you kind of have to look at it too in the pendulum. We talk about the pendulum swing on this show a lot, and when the country first was founded, you had a lot of frontier people, and then as the city started to grow, the pendulum swung to where you lived on the same street as your grandparents. Maybe even the same house sometimes. And now we're in the arena of you move as far away from your family. And I believe, to me, that's the attack on the American family, is making people move so far away that you're almost back into the frontier days where you're going to go as far away from your mom and dad as possible because you're your own man, you're your own woman now. And now it's almost swinging back to, we need to kind of confine people back to an area and be close together again. And if it's used right, to promote family and community.
Yeah, nationalism is really changed too.
Right.
I mean, you're now where globalism, is a more predominant thought, and the world is shrinking, like it or not. I mean, we've seen that. I mean, sanctuary cities, we didn't even have that terminology 10 years ago. I mean, these weren't even thoughts in our head, but now you've got a much different view of what constitutes community.
Right.
And so, I've never thought I would live to the day where I heard that we would have states that were actually considering withdrawing from the U.S., much less anything. But now I think you're right. The pendulum has swung, and now it seems like we're going back to this this kind of concept that smaller is the new big, right? And so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of, I've gone to a couple of not super big cities, but moderate sized, and I like the idea of like having public transportation like that's available. I like being able to walk most places. Do I want to live in like a hustling and bustling and big city? No. I like to visit there. We live a pretty good journey away from New Orleans, and I've told this to many people. I live far enough away from New Orleans that I love to go there and spend some time there. And that's about it. And I come back home because I'm like, it's crazy, it's hectic, it's wild, it's a mess out there. But it's fun to go out there and walk around and see the sights and go see all these places and go get some good food and then have my fill and then go back home.
I'm curious, and you bring up New Orleans. Would you feel, you said you want to visit there, you would not want to live there.
Yeah.
Is there a reason, and you could really apply that to any city.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason is it because you would feel unsafe? You don't feel that, I feel cramped. I mean, what is kind of the driving motive? Because I hear, I'd visit there, but I don't want to live there.
Right.
What's kind of going on there?
I recently just came back from Houston as well, and it's the same feeling. I was like, they had not so much the public transportation aspect, but like the places that I was staying in were not but a few blocks of a walk to go like to major like cool locations and things, or a small drive from like our hotel to a mall or whatever. A lot of it has to do with it's just so expensive to live out there, but it's just the kind of that fast-paced life that like I am not a really super big fan of. I live kind of in the suburbs right now. I wouldn't say I live like in a rural area, but I live like next to a pretty big subdivision. I live in a nice community of people, and I like that feeling of being in a community of people in like kind of a smaller city of sorts. I have all the stuff I need kind of in close proximity, but not too crazy. But like it's just so much traffic. It's just so much heartache, and just, I mean, it's, like I said, it's so expensive. There's a lot of factors that I'm like, it's cool to go out there and go like, and to be involved in it for a minute, and to get kind of caught up in like the whimsy of it, of like, ooh, we're in a big city and it's fun, and I can look around and walk on the street and, you know, whatever. But like, I don't think it's my lifestyle. Almost the same way that like there are some people that love living way off the grid, like living really off the grid. You know what I mean? Like out in the sticks down a long dirt road, and that's not for me either. I like to go out there and go like, wow, this is a really cool ranch you got out here, and see some horses and be a part of a farm and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, do I want to like live and keep up a life out here? Nah, it's not really for me.
So, you know, I can understand why you might feel that way.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I think millennials probably have a good awareness of a footprint and green, you know, and kind of embracing green thought. But you know, the other thing that you would have to kind of think about is that you've not been in that place in your generation where the American dream is even affordable anymore. You have to worry about gentrification and all kinds of things. You've seen it to where home ownership is a real challenge in your generation. And so, you know, I can understand that. And I'm going to say that's the thing that concerns me about a 15-minute city is that, you know, you can very easily in a 15-minute city push people out.
Right.
And to me, that's
here comes into line with that. Like with the UN's 2030 agenda.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember reading about.
They want to bring in certain things, and it's modeled for the 15-minute city. So the biggest one on that one that scares me is being microchipped for health, shopping, and travel. Have you been vaccinated? What did you say? They want to bring in the China's social score.
The ESG.
Yes. And which is already happening in China. This is not like something that they're talking about doing.
Yeah.
They're using it. If you jaywalk in the street in certain cities in China, your face gets plastered all over your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And look at this person jaywalking, and funds automatically come out of your bank account.
Yeah, and the on the medical front you were talking about, if we do 15-minute cities to the extent that they're talking about, you're talking about extremes and unprecedented things.
Yeah.
In fact, even new ways to discriminate against people. They were talking about how these chips within you could walk through a threshold. And it could automatically scan you for a physical health.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you turn around and that goes to your insurance company. You could be dropped just because you're constantly monitored. So surveillance, I think, is probably my number one problem with the whole concept.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And you see, one of the things that bothers me is this, one of the benefits is supposedly going to help local businesses. Well, when you have companies, and here we go again, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard buying everything, how many local businesses are going to be actually there to be used and benefit from this? They're buying all the homes. They're not planning on letting you own a home. That's one of the things in the family unit, in all private property. So you're only going to be able to be a renter. So now you have to pay somebody else to live there. What's that going to do for equality as far as housing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, ultra wealthy are going to have this great building to live in, and everybody else gets to go be in the slums.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's usually how it
winds up anyway. But
it kind of naturally gravitates to that, because rich people are going to want to be around rich people,
but it's going to be
everybody
easier
else
to
is kind of
control
on
that
their
way.
own.
It's going to be easier to control that way with the social score, with EV vehicles, okay, electric vehicles. How are you going to charge it? Oh, your social score is so bad this month. You know, bad X-man. You can't charge.
Or they can restrict
how
much you can charge your car.
I think cars are doomed in this plan. I mean, in a
Absolutely.
15-minute city plan, cars are off the table. I think that's going to be a form of entertainment instead of
for the
it being,
ultra wealthy.
Yeah, and it's going to be nostalgic. It's going to be anything, but it is. I think cars are done.
But think about this too. One of the big ones on there is they want to end of all non-essential air travel. So now you're stuck in your 15-minute city and can't
There's
go
your
nowhere.
box.
There's your box.
I want to know something, and this will be interesting for you, Jason, because with your background, I want to know what you think. So, what do you think about banishment? Because here's the, I'm always so skeptical of the government. I mean, what happens if you get the scarlet letter put on you, man? Then what do you do?
Shame.
Well,
Kick
look,
out the city.
if you really want to go back and look at kind of the history of punishment and how that was meted out, up until just recent, I would say within the last 100 years,
Right.
where was executions done?
In the town
In
square.
the town square,
Uh-oh.
in front of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a spectacle. I mean, people pack picnic lunches to go watch this stuff.
Not even just the executions, but when you got whipped or stoned
Yeah.
or whatever, it
I
was
mean,
in the middle of the
we
city.
all know if you
Oh,
ever
yeah.
been to like the Renaissance Festival and
Yeah,
how they
yeah.
put you in the stocks, in the middle of town, and
Yeah.
But
you sit
again,
there.
that was a way for control.
That was a way of
You
control.
controlled the population by,
Exactly.
but then
So,
if you were a thief, what did they do?
well, that depends on what society
yeah.
you were in.
Right.
Cut your hands off?
Possibly. And some
If
cultures.
you were an adulterer, you got a big A put on you.
I will say,
It was all visible is what I'm trying to
like
say.
the idea, though, of public kind of admonishment as a means of controlling bad behavior is not necessarily bad. I think what's happened is a lot of people can kind of stay in darkness, so to speak, with and no one else knows about this individual until you hear about, oh my God, this person was convicted of this and this and this, and we wonder why he was out of jail and blah 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 and blah blah blah. So
that's what I was wondering, because here's what happens then. You put this in the animal kingdom. You're talking about the outlanders.
Right.
You get banished from the kingdom and you get put in the outlands. Now you're out there, and now, like, where is it safe to go where you can still have resources and things like that? And then I hate to tell you this, Wolfman, is that becomes a problem for you then, because you can't escape this other world, because out there are all the bad people. That's where the people have gone to be banished.
The wilderness.
That is no longer your vacation spot, right?
Right.
So,
But you see, we say this and we're joking and we're laughing about it, but how many times on this show, even back in the original days with you, X-Men, did we talk about Hollywood working with the government and other entities to try to prepare us for things? How many movies have been coming out lately in, say, the last 15 so years about a resistance, about people being banished to the outland, so to speak? I mean, how many movies has come out? How many...
it's
what was
tribalism all over
yes,
again.
all over again, and now they're preparing us for it.
Although I have to say, I do think Hunger Games is really cool.
Yeah.
That's a
I just
prime
don't know if I wanna be in it.
Prime example. I mean,
or
that's,
Divergent.
people
What
bring
was-
that up.
Yeah.
Well, look.
How about Priest? Remember the vampire movie Priest, where you lived in the big safe city,
Yeah.
and if you didn't cut it and do the right things, you get put out into the
They
outlands.
send you outside.
Yeah, I'm going to say this: 15-minute cities, job security for all priests.
Yes, exactly. What was the other? There was another movie there was that kind of concept of you were self-contained and everything was taken care of, and then if they banished you,
Judge
Dredd
Dredd.
was Judge Dredd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember that with
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone movie, So, but look, at the end of the day, I mean, okay, if we don't like the 15-minute city, then do we like sitting in traffic? Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
So the question is, I mean, I've seen, and there's all kind of stats on this stuff. I mean, I've seen anywhere
You
from
have stats.
I've seen anywhere from 50 to almost 100 hours that people per year
Right.
are sitting in traffic.
And see, I thought it would be more than that.
Nothing more.
I mean, if you just consider an hour a day, that's way more than that.
So the question is that, but that's still lost time sitting in a car.
Sure.
That's not productive at all.
But the wolf loves public transportation.
Well,
he wants to hop on. I
wouldn't
can't
say,
stand it.
No. I wouldn't say love it, but I like the current city that we live in does not have many other modes of transportation. Like if you want to get anywhere in I would say the greater state of Louisiana, you have to own a car.
Oh, you
Hands
have
down.
to.
There's not a lot of walking paths anywhere. There's not a lot of bike paths anywhere, and respectfully, I do not trust the bus system that we currently have. And so, right, and we won't go into all that. But what I'm saying is
that's another podcast.
I lived in. I'm not trying to say anything, but I have lived in a city before where like they did have very well upkept and very busy, like open bus travel, and they had a lot of bike paths and walking paths in the city that I lived in, where it was like, if I want to go across town, I need to own a car. But realistically, if I wanted to, I have other alternatives that I could get somewhere safely. Right now, I don't have that, and it started to make me realize how much I kind of miss having some of that. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I'm saying like it's just things like that. Of like, I'm not saying I want to have everything so close or want to be in a 15-minute city, but just like if I do live relatively close to a city out in the kind of suburbs, I would like a little bit more safety in transportation. And right now, again, a lot of the roads that we have, a lot of the signals that we have, I don't think are properly managed. And so like we have a lot of, at least in the small suburb that I'm a part of, there's a lot of red lights and a lot of traffic jams from people coming from the inner city back home to our neck of the woods.
See, that was the design of the post-World War II.
Yeah.
With the advent of the automobile,
Right.
is I live here,
Yeah.
I work there, I go to church there.
Yeah.
Everything is I've got to travel to, and that was pushed by the automobile industry too.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I don't think it
Right.
was a motive there. That way, you'd have to have a car.
Yeah. Personally, if I leave my office between 4 and 5 o'clock, there are roads that merge into one lane and funnel into a red light that that constantly has to switch through. And there are so many cars that get backed up there that I'm like, this is so inefficient. And I'm not saying I have the answers because heaven forbid I don't. But like, there's got to be something that is like, there's got to be something that can be worked out, and at least in that area. And that's one of probably 2 or 3 areas that do the same thing. That I'm like, this just doesn't feel. This feels like it could be improved in some way.
And that was designed by the gas companies. And so let me just tell you, you can't trust anything.
No.
And it sounds all beautiful and sunshiny. I like the whole,
yeah.
I'm with you. I
Yeah.
love infrastructure. I love the idea of people who face challenges and getting around, that they would have public walkways and great transportation, and those who need help, with disability and so forth.
Right.
I love that part. Here's what I don't love. Jason, I do not love the idea of some terrorist in the future targeting that infrastructure and turning it against me as a citizen of a 15-minute city. Like, seriously, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if these 15-minute cities, they're going to have resources, they're going to have all of these things, right?
Yeah.
And you're probably going to live in the same network of stuff we have now. So there's going to be low income, there's going to be kind of middle class, there's going to be higher income. So all of a sudden, some rich city can now attack my city as a middle class city and take that infrastructure and turn it on its head. And now maybe I don't have clean drinking water, or I have rolling black and brownouts because I'm not living in the right 15-minute city.
Right.
Right. Well, any as I said, any system you set up, there's a potential for abuse.
Of course.
I mean, it's just what it is. I still believe from a health standpoint. I mean, just think about it.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have to have a car,
Right.
insurance,
Oh yeah.
car notes,
Telling me.
car maintenance, I'd be very curious how much money it goes to that.
Yeah. For me, it's at least hundreds of dollars.
It is. It's a lot of money.
You're going to need it for your rent.
I remember
Or your food, because you
it-
won't be able to grow anything in your backyard either anymore, will you?
And that's another thing to target.
My name is Father David, and I'm a Franciscan friar, and every week, me and my guests dive into some of the most pressing issues of our time: church and state, immigration, LGBTQ+, economic inequality, anxiety, depression, climate change, and so much more. Join us in these conversations. Friar Time isn't just another podcast, it's where faith meets real life head on. You can find all the links to our podcast channels in your show notes.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's well, of course, these people that would push this concept
Right.
would be more aligned with, instead of you having your personal garden, a community garden.
There you go.
Well,
That's where you'll.
Well, but you see, that's part of the UN agenda. If you look at it, end of private farms and vegetable gardens, end of animal ownership, and a ban on all natural medicine.
And who does that make us dependent on?
The government.
Oh my God, we're doomed.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
You know.
Don't ever believe that.
I mean, there are good, and that's what they're selling it on, is the good things that it could possibly be. But you know their intention has nothing to do with that good possibility.
Yeah.
They want it for the negatives. They want it for control because it'll be easier to control the population.
Right. Well, and I'm worried too about the advancements in things like weather control and stuff like that. I mean, they can make it rain on some of these 15-minute cities and not on others. So, I mean, they really could jack with our ability to be self-sustaining communities. The other thing I'm worried about is it just becomes the new discrimination. Now it's no longer age or race or color or nation. And what it is, okay, what city do you live in? And I'm also worried at,
Part of the city.
Yeah, or I'm also worried about cities who share similar ideologies banding together and going to war with cities who don't share that. And we're seeing it even in our own country in kind of like just kind of preliminary ways now. Again, it's do you worry about if we implement a 15-minute city ideology and we accept that, do you worry about the fact that we've just created even more division, even more ways to be separated, even more ways? I don't know.
Well, it becomes very tribal.
Right.
As the way it was in, the medieval times and before. It was very tribal. You had cities that would fight cities for resources, for this, for that, ideology, like you just said. That's a very good topic. That maybe even a whole nother show on that, because what happens to the mentality of people confined into a space?
Yeah, and what does that look like? I mean, do the big cities, are they ones that get all the control because they have the best resource? Like seriously, what does this look like? I think it's not. I agree with Jason that it's not a totally bad thing. I just feel like if we don't proceed with a lot of caution around this, it is just replete with opportunity for the government to take advantage of citizens, even to a much greater extent than what they do now. And the Big Brother thing,
because we haven't even talked about AI taking over these cities and doing something there, because Skynet's coming.
Well, I mean, believe it or not, I saw some things that said that the AI has already reached awareness.
Supposedly. I don't quite believe that yet, but
yeah, but there's a lot of there's a lot of influential people that are in that world.
Again, is there a type of AI that probably has? Yes. Do we have access to any of it? No.
No, we don't. Not to our level.
Right.
Where we're at now. But I mean, if it's there, it's just a matter of time.
Well, Elon's already told us it's there. He knows.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. These people that are in that world, I mean, it's here. The question is, how do you push it down to the everyday person? So, I mean, that's kind of what. I mean, all that's going to play into the part with the 15 minutes.
Yes, it is.
It just is.
Because it's going to start like everything. It's going to start, it's going to benefit humanity. We're just going to use it on the traffic lights. And we're going to use it for our fancy little drone cars and our hey, you don't have to have delivery. It's going to start off with these little things that are supposedly going to help you. We're going to monitor the watering system. We're going to do this. How is your trash getting picked up by robots now? And we're going to use AI to pick up that because it can be able to tell where there's more trash and concentrate on those areas. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have robot police, which they already have.
Yep.
I have a friend of mine in California who the parking lots are monitored by robots.
Yeah. Yep.
And so what's the next step for that? Wait till AI gets a hold of these 15-minute cities.
Well, and my fear is just that, it's not necessarily going to be the bombs and things like that that are going to be the most concerning thing. It's going to be a whole new wave of different kinds of evil, like eco-terrorism.
Yep.
I mean, they can target air filtration. They can target, if you're dependent on solar power in a 15-minute city, who's to say that AI couldn't just go out and just wipe out all of your solar power and then cause you to be crippled in a split second? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're devastated at that point. If you can't have clean water and good food and have power and energy to run your community, you are devastated. And then what happens? I mean, then you're carnage. It's going to be person against person. And it's not going to take long. You don't have to drop a bomb on that. 3 days with no water it makes people act differently.
If you go a week with no food, they say you're 8 to 12 days away from cannibalism.
Exactly. Right.
That's a scary thought.
I mean, but that's inside a city. But then think about this too. You're in this confined city. How many poo-poo pipes you think coming out of that city?
Right.
Okay, what happens if somebody turns some valves on that? You talk about eco-terrorism.
Yeah.
Stop the poo-poo from running.
Yeah.
And watch what happens. Now you're back to the medieval times.
Plague.
And the plague and everything else running through your city because you can't get your poo-poo opened up again.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's... I know the World Economic Forum is pushing this, and because they're all tied into this green and carbon footprints and trying to make the planet healthier, and we have too many people and all this other stuff.
That's another thing. I'm going to go with the depopulation.
My question is, do you really want, are you okay driving 2 hours a day?
I'd rather drive than somebody try to control me.
I mean, because ultimately that's really what this comes down to. And the associated cost of being in a car for about 2 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Are you okay with that? If you are, then nothing will convince you. Nothing will convince you that the 15-minute city is worth it. But I'm telling you, Stone, this comes down to age, because what's happening is, who's generally in favor of this are generally older people and younger people. It's not the people in the middle.
Yeah. Well, I'm the older person in this group, and I can tell you I'm not.
Yeah, but I'm talking about general numbers, because if you think about it, for someone that's elderly,
and you don't associate with all this stuff that you're aware of.
Exactly.
All this other stuff. You just talk about the promise of it being close and safe and all that stuff.
But then again, you say that, the elderly. Are the elderly really going to be the people brought to these cities? Because the elderly, once they get to a certain age, have nothing to benefit this city. They're only going to bring people that they can control and benefit from.
So the question is,
because the ultra rich aren't going to want to do the work, but they're going to need people that can do it. Like, that's why Rockefeller started the school system, started the big pharma with the petroleum drugs, because he wanted people to work in his factories. And that has taken, that is your World Economic Forum. That's the money. The Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, and the Rothschilds, that's all their money. That's who the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, and all these people, that's that money. Mm-hmm. And so they want slaves. So the elderly aren't going to be there. They can want it because it's an easy life. I'm going to get 3 meals a day. I'm going to have a toilet. I'm going to have everything I need. They're not going to be asked to go there.
Right, but I think we're talking about the fact of, like, whenever this gets started up. Like, who, I think that...
I mean, think about it. The older you get, what you want to be? You want to be around hospitals, doctors' offices. I mean, you don't want to be out in the hinterland. I mean, unless you're just kind of wired differently. But generally, as people get older and health issues start coming up, and I know people now that have to drive an hour and a half to get to a doctor's office. But you have a problem medically and you need help now,
Right.
you're in trouble. You just are, especially with traffic. I mean, we all think about it. We see it every day. Ambulances trying to get through rush hour traffic. They're probably going, somebody's having a heart attack.
Right.
I think it's very interesting because right now everybody is all concerned about the fact that we can be attacked for our data, for our identity being stolen, hackers, all that stuff. I think this returns us back into a medieval time where actually the truer threat is an uprising or some kind of guerrilla warfare internally in a 15-minute city where your food supplies and things like that are overtaken by citizens and then held hostage in order to advance whatever the agenda is that they're trying to accomplish. And so that to me is a great concern because if you're truly talking about a shrinking world, you're talking about vertical farms and all these things. Those are very easy things to commandeer. They really are. Those are, and that can be devastating in a 15-minute city scenario. Transportation systems, things like that. I mean, those are so easy to take down. Look at the Olympics, opening day, right? Bam, everything gets shut down because there's attack on the subway system. And so, it's just, I really think we're kind of setting ourselves up for a return to an old day when our infrastructure becomes target instead of our data and computer systems and all that. I think that you have a legitimate concern regarding AI and unfortunately the idea that AI has awareness and things like that. I think that's already done. I mean, I think it's there, and I think it scares me, and it's kind of like ignorance is bliss. But this sets us up for some new. I'm not saying they're worse problems, just different kinds of issues than what we're used to.
I like the idea currently of, like, I see what we're talking about here, that, like, we're talking about forcing and pigeonholing people into making this decision. But, like, this is probably the least popular opinion in the room, but it's like, I'm okay with there being a 15-minute city and then allowing people to choose to live there. If someone, again, because it currently happens now, there are people, to bring back to a previous point, that love living in Houston, that love probably living in New Orleans, that love living in a hustling and bustling city. I currently have friends that live in this kind of suburb area that want to go move to a big city, to go involved for the opportunities, for all the things. And I'm like, go do that. If you have a job that you can afford the place that you want to stay at, if you have jobs that you can work out there and you want to, like, be a part of a city that has better transportation, go do that. Go what makes you happy. And if there's a 15-minute city that probably has all these control things and makes people feel safe, or that there's old folks that feel like they can be a part of a smaller community, if there's young folks that don't want to own a car ever, I'm like, if you have the freedom of choice, I'm all about it. Go live your life. Go live in a city that has that. Now this is where we start to talk about, like, the forcing of things. Now if you're like, okay, now you have to uproot your life and you have to go live there, that's when I'm like, okay, I don't like that. Once you start taking freedoms away, that's when it starts to get more.
Well, for this to work,
of course,
the way I think, these groups, there's gonna be some forcing of this on people. And I don't know how you get around it. I really don't.
What I was saying before about, like, prefacing about this whole situation about having the middle are not going to be very accepting of this, is I think that, like, what we would see, just like you said for AI, it's all about, like, a trickling out. It's going to start off with building one or two of these that people congregate towards, and then, of course, it's going to be more and more popular until eventually that middle portion that doesn't want to move is going to get forced into it, and then
I mean, the truth of the matter is it already exists. We already have these things in the world today.
Yeah.
And what's funny is some people pay a lot of money to experience them.
Yeah.
You said that you like to visit these kinds of places, but that you don't like live there. Well, what do you think a cruise is? I mean, come on. It is a 15-minute city on water that floats around. And I guarantee you, like, if
Be going on one in February.
exactly. So, and some of them are much more fun than others. So, just want, I mean, we already have these things, but you're talking about a widespread thing. It's going to change the dynamics of people's interactions, of what constitutes community, of what constitutes nation or nationalism. Like, this is a game changer. And you think the world's small now? You just wait.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, the cities with the worst traffic, talking about living in big city,
gosh.
guess what number one is?
Los Angeles.
No.
Detroit. I don't know.
New York.
That makes sense. Yeah.
New York City.
Either that or Washington, D.C.
After that, it's London, Paris, and Mexico City.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
but guess what? People in New York want to live you hear it all the time. I want to live in the city.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Because
And
that's
again,
where all the action
right.
is.
And-
Yeah, but
and
you have to think about that as much as they want a 15-minute city there. New York is not a 15-minute city.
No.
Right.
It's the
not.
closest to it.
It's not even that because of just your travel time to go from point A to B. Let's say tomorrow they decided to make New York City a 15-minute city. How much do you think it would take to change the infrastructure to make New York, or even New Orleans?
They'd have to redo it completely.
They would have to completely rebuild
because
the city.
it's one of the most segregated cities in
Yes.
the world. You've
There's
got,
where I'm
you've
going,
got
yes.
Chinatown, you've got Little Italy, you got Wall Street, all these things. I mean, that city's not.
Well,
to me, it's vertical.
Those cities, though, see, once again, why the traffic's so bad? Because those cities were designed originally not with cars in mind.
Yeah.
You think about it.
Well, that's
they
what,
were not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
So good. True.
They were not. They were designed for people to live there and walk down the street to the shop and do whatever they needed to do. But just real quick, you talk about Los Angeles. Los Angeles is 7 on that list as far as worst, and Houston is 10.
Oh, I believe it. I drove into Houston, and I was consistently, anytime I merged onto a highway, and then like to go where I wanted to go, I had to cut across like 3 lanes of traffic every time. Like, it was like, I hopped on this interstate, I hopped on this big highway, and it was like, okay, to go to your next destination, cut across 3 rows of traffic instantly to go to that exit right there. And I was like, this is not.
Yeah.
And
I hate Houston.
And dude, when I looked at it and I zoomed out the map, I was like, what is this spaghetti network of roads? It was so frustrating because I was like, I had to turn into that driver that I hate of like just cutting across traffic and just like swerving around like a maniac to get where I wanted to go. Because obviously I didn't know this city at all, and I'm looking at my map trying to be like, what am I doing?
You can want to drive 2 miles in Houston and take an hour to an hour and 15 minutes to get there. 2 miles.
It was crazy.
It's
They
ridiculous.
say, the Big Apple lost. They lost 101 hours to traffic jams in 2023, costing more than $1,700 in lost time and productivity.
Wow.
And see, I think it would be more than
In the
that.
U.S., yeah, but you talk about kind of general averages. I'm sure they're probably larger, and So in the U.S., traffic delays cost a typical driver more than $733 in lost time, or $70 billion nationwide in 2023, according to INRIX.
Wow.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's going to be this monetary thing because you also lose once you take that away. With this improved infrastructure, you lose the income off of gas and jobs and things, all of the things that support those infrastructures. But I think kind of one of the greatest costs in this, I know I keep going back to it, but is freedom.
Yes.
Like, I'm very worried about the cost of freedom. And you brought this up, Jason, when you talked about, be access to other cities, other places. Like, how restrictive is that going to be? Right now you have to have, visa and passports and things like that. well, how does that look going forward?
Oh,
Access
wait
to
till
these
it
places.
becomes mandatory vaccinations on top of that too.
Well,
If you don't have all, what happens if this other city wants these vaccinations and you don't have it over here because your city doesn't believe in that particular vaccination, but it's mandatory over here?
well, I'm gonna tell you, you're talking about some of the fears, and this is kind of some of the stuff that I think you can kind of go down. It can go down a very dark path because once you open that door, you open the door. But it says here, in 2003, the City of London introduced the congestion charge, which charges cars being driven within the congestion charge zone in central London during specific hours, £15 a day. Drivers who don't pay the congestion charge are fined £160. So you can see how these kind of things, because once you implement something, okay, we have to make it work. So I've got to start doing certain things to kind of direct behavior.
Right.
And that's where this is coming from.
But in my research, I came up with my pros and cons of it, and that falls. I came up with 3 cons, and my first one was economic and social segregation, which we've already talked about. But number 2 was overregulation. And that's exactly what you're talking
Well,
about.
the fast
right
food
there.
industry tried to do that to us last year when they were going to do their drive-through peak time
Right.
charges on your Whoppers and your Mc and your McBLTs. I mean, bull. They got totally rejected by the American consumer, and now look, the fast food industry is crashing
Right.
at an alarming rate because they wanted to take advantage of the consumers that way. So I think some of this is going to end up in complete revolt. You know, you're going to get.
Or
Well,
again, you're trying to incentivize people to not drive in a certain area at a certain time. But like, what is that going to do? That's going to divert the traffic somewhere else. And then the problem's not gone. The problem has now shifted towards like lower infrastructure roads or smaller neighborhoods or whatever else to get around that restriction.
Well,
that's-
I will say here, I'm going to just follow up that. It says, last year, the City of London shared the results of the congestion charge with the city's traffic congestion having fallen by 30%, while boosting public transport use along with walking and cycling. So
Okay.
I guess you could say it's having the desired effect of stopping people from driving, and these are reducing that and forcing people to say, you know what, just take the bus.
Not me, man. I'm gonna. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna revolt. I'm gonna get all frustrated, and then I'm gonna
go.
Bud Light that company big time or that group. And that's what I'm worried about. Like, what happens? What does unrest look like in the future? And what is the ramifications of that? Because people are gonna get tired of that kind of stuff real fast. And I think you're in for a lot of unrest, a lot of civil unrest.
I agree with that because it's going to be all about control at that point. You say the wrong thing. You vote the wrong way. You don't believe like everybody else. What little of left of local businesses, what's going to happen? Think about a local business. Talk about a cancel culture now. Wait till you're in a 15-minute city. And now they put you on the big screen and say, look what they did here. Nobody go there. And then you can't get your goods and wares, and then you're shut down. You're done. You're over. Oh, guess what? Now you're exiled.
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot of just criticism of the concept of the 15-minute city as unrealistic. And there's it's not like I'm not even talking about potential conspiracies or I'm just talking about the practicality of the idea that everything should be within a 15-minute reach of an individual, whether they bike or they walk or whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is, government can't really force that. I mean, think about it. Hospitals. You can't have a hospital in every little city. It doesn't happen that way because a lot of these institutions are specialized. Where do they set up? They set up in the greatest population areas where generally people that have the aptitude to go into that kind of work generally congregate. So there's issues with hospitals, universities. What do people normally do for universities? They don't always go to the university that's right there, the closest to them. Sometimes they go somewhere else.
I can respond to that. And let me find it on my list here when it comes down to the UN agenda for 2030. All businesses run by the state. And also, hold on, where is it? Where is it? Oh, crap, where is it? It's on here. I know it is. Oh, yeah, end of the family unit and your children raised by the government.
Right, well, here's the...
Okay, because you know what? You can't raise your son. We need a doctor. So your son is now going to be a doctor. Oh, yeah. We need a garbage man. Your daughter is going to be the garbage woman now.
Right.
Because you won't be able to dictate what it's government-raised children.
It's North Korea.
It's exactly North Korea.
It basically is. And you know, that's just the beginning of the problems with all of this. I mean, I agree with you from the standpoint that there are great things about this and that it's going to be hard to do. But I do not agree with the government can't control it, because the government is heading toward. The city planning is the government.
I mean,
that's right.
And we're in a place right now where we're starting to run out of room in some of these places. And so new cities are going to get planned. And so how do you change culture? You change it through new people and leadership.
Well,
and
what is Saudi Arabia doing? Yeah. Saudi Arabia, what is a mile city? Yeah. They're building it. It's under construction now. They're building a new city in the desert, 1 mile long. That's going to be one of the first true 15-minute cities.
Then they're going to take it and dupe it all over the world.
That's right. It. That's right. And that's what Maui was supposed to be.
Maybe in the future, but right now, from what I've heard, it's so because I think it's called The Line, and it's so lofty that I think financially it may fail before it even finishes.
Right.
Because it's so crazy.
I just kind of go back to what I said. I personally think there are some logistical issues with the concept of 15. And I think when Marino poached put the idea out there, I think it's more of a guide in how things should be,
like a template that you could look at.
Right, and not necessarily a hard, fast. I mean, there are some places that there would have to be a lot of, and I'm not saying it can't happen.
Right.
The world would have to change radically.
America would have to change
change radically. And then ultimately, knowing America for what it is,
how stubborn it is,
there's going to be people that are going to fight and resist that kind of stuff. That just is.
Let's talk about radical change in America today. Look at Maui. Maui, Hawaii.
That's right.
I mean, it's already happening. You've got the super rich going in.
Yes.
And what they did was they commandeered that island so that they could have their 15-minute city dream come true. And so you can call that a conspiracy all you want, but let's look at the facts. Why don't you ask the residents there what they think happened?
Yeah, I agree 100%. They were already 2 years before the fires trying to buy the land from the locals, and they said no. Ask the people there now how much help they've gotten to rebuild. Zero. Oh, they get offers to buy their property. They get offers to buy their property and relocate them to the States or somewhere else, but they don't. They're not getting their money to rebuild right now.
And Stoney, let me ask you this: why Maui?
Why Maui? Where is it located?
In the middle of nothing.
The middle of nothing.
Which is where the line's located.
That's
too,
right.
By the way.
Middle of nothing, so that the ultra rich have a place to go when the crap hits the fan in the world. They have a place to go really far away and live their life.
So these are new, developed, intentional 15-minute cities that are self-sustainable out in the middle of nowhere so that they're not easily attacked.
Right.
Because you're going to know if you're going to be attacked in that location, right? Because you can see it incoming. And so this is the government fundamentally changing through the development of new development, and it's already been happening. Come on, Dubai, it wasn't even there
Right.
when I was a kid.
That's right.
So you've got the government changing this through city development, and who are the residents of them?
The ultra wealthy.
The super rich.
And the governments now are run by these super rich and wealthy. The BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard have a combined, and they're all owned by each other. It's still one corporation because all of the board sits on the board and they, of each other. They are a combined $69 trillion entity. Okay, that's the whole world added together.
Yeah, and that's justification for Wolf's, concept about being concerned about gentrification and being priced out of things. It will absolutely happen. It will happen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely will, because that's who's running this now.
Best predictor of the future, the past.
That's right. How many times have they done it? They've shoved it down our throats. How many times?
Over and over.
And for me, this is why there's such a large attack on the American family, because while America is strong, this will never happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fact is, the more diffused that a population is in self-sufficient, well, my need of a central governing authority is not nearly as, I don't need it as much as maybe somebody that lives inside of a highly urbanized environment. I don't need the government. You hear it now by people who live out there in the middle of nowhere. What do I need the government for? I don't need a grid.
Got my own food.
I got my own food. I mean, and let's be honest, that's how America started.
That's right.
That's how America started. But there was a time, though, where people were fleeing the countryside and coming to the city. Why is that?
But you see, they tried to push that again with COVID. What happened with COVID? They made you go into your house. They took the humanity.
They compartmentalized your life.
Compartmentalized your life.
Right.
Made you work from home. Made you not talk. You couldn't go see your grandmother in the hospital or the old folks' home. You couldn't go to church. So they're trying to see, what can we get away with? How many times now have you heard monkeypox is coming out?
Yeah, I've heard that.
And then my favorite thing is now when you look at what people know. Has anybody heard of the prophecy of the popes?
I think I've heard that.
I would love to do, and X-Man, maybe you can come on and do that with us. When the Vatican was built, what did the popes know? Because if you go to the Vatican, I don't know who's been here. I've been to the Vatican. There is a finite number
of frames.
We're in the last hole now.
Right.
2027. And one of the popes did some predictions on this timeline.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing about
that.
that.
What did they know? And 2027 is the year. So with all of this going on now and forcing us to do something, why is there going to be no more popes? What did they know?
Very interesting.
And so with this being pushed on us now, what happens?
Well, and the other thing,
does that Armageddon happen? Does the rebellion, as you said, come into effect?
Well, and that's the banishment, right? And if you don't go along with it, are you going to get banished to the outer lands? And then,
but how biblical is that? How biblical is that?
Well, it's huge.
The mark of the beast.
Right.
That's your digital ID.
Or your key to the city.
Or your key. That's right. That's right. If you don't have it, you can't get into the city.
Well, yeah, because what are you going to do if you live in the outlands because you've been banished, or you don't want to live in the city, or you want to be out in the middle of nowhere, or you want to be self-sustaining, or you want to, all of that. What are you going to do when a city like L.A. cuts off your resources because they control them all?
That's right.
Well, they make you conform. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when it comes to my basic well-being, my food, my water, guess what you're going to do?
Or just like London, you're going to
gonna-
pay a fee for it.
Are you going to
Or
pay,
you're going to pay a fee for it. That's
Pay
right.
a fee.
Right.
I mean,
Which will be higher
know,
depending on what your social score is.
I've had this discussion about what we're going to do, and if this happens, if that happens. I mean, the fact of the matter is, there's very few people that can survive on their own. They just can't.
But that's their point.
I get that, but
If
the
you
fact
need to
is,
depopulate everybody.
most people are going to do what they're going to be told to do.
That's
I
right.
mean, it's just what it is.
Well, it's the same thing with like all the. You made a point earlier about McDonald's making that whole claim about the whole.
That was insane, wasn't it?
But the funny thing, but you say that, but then again, just like every company does, just like every government does, just like
does.
I've done in the past, and I'll say this here proudly on the show. You give it some time, you let a situation diffuse a little bit, let everyone kind of forget that it happened a little bit, backtrack on it or whatever, or let go, however you want to say it. Let it all simmer down for a second, and then give something that they actually really enjoy. McDonald's is bringing back like an actual like dollar value menu for like, and people are going crazy for it. And now their stocks are up higher than they ever have been supposedly. And it's like, and so it's like they do something, they shoot themselves in the foot. They're like, oh, let's go ahead and let's.
Well, yeah,
I think
like
it's
it doesn't
just,
happen.
It's like I said earlier. It's
And then they give
seeing
something
what
you
they
like.
can get away with.
Right,
Yeah,
of
but
They're
course.
trying it out and seeing what they can do.
Right.
Yeah, but
So-
the
right.
fast food industry, though, I think the biggest thing facing the fast food industry is people are finally smart.
Yep.
With the
Right.
quality of it. There is a lot more consciousness, and I think this goes along with the green movement.
Right.
And it's at the heart of its argument. I'm very much, I count myself as a conservative Republican, whatever moniker you want to. But there are many parts of what would be traditionally Democrat that I'm in favor of.
Sure.
I'm in favor of clean water,
Right.
our food to be healthy.
Right.
I don't see
You
that
know,
Republicans or the conservatives don't want those
Well,
things.
generally, though, but you're talking about as far as, once again, you're talking about generalities.
Yeah.
Republicans have always been typically associated with big corporations,
Right.
businesses
Right.
looking for the bottom line. And if I've got to make this cheaper,
Yeah.
I'll sacrifice quality to get the right price point where people will buy it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Generals now, I think that a lot of that's changed because
same
now
thing with the Democratic Party.
70% of
That,
the 70% of the wealth is owned by Democrats.
That's right.
It's funny how it has switched.
It hasn't switched. It's always been that way. But they've said that we're for the people. We're for these things. They've never been for the people.
Well, the other thing is it brings up and here is to me the $1 million question on all this.
If I answer it, do I get $1 million?
Sure. Who gets to decide what's available locally?
Right.
Who gets to decide what these little cities, these little 15-minute cities
Right.
get to have? You know, like who gets to determine that?
I mean,
I'm telling you, it's going to be global domination and
Yes.
control, and it is going to. All of this is just a setup to, you said, the biblical kind of forecast for one world government.
One world government. That's exactly what they're going for. That is on the UN Charter for 2030. One world government, one world bank, one world monetary
That's 6
system,
years from now.
one world police.
Then
That's right.
I will bring up a point based on an episode that you all did when X-Men was with y'all. What if aliens landed on the White House lawn?
That's right.
Okay, at that point, think about it. If that happens in front of everybody, a spaceship lands and these beings come out. Yeah, we're here. We come from here, blah, blah, blah.
And we're hungry.
Guess what? We're no longer Americans. We're no longer Russians.
I've said
We're
that,
no
yeah.
longer Chinese.
We're humans.
We're human beings now. And guess what? One world government then makes sense.
Everybody tackle Wolf because
No,
he
no,
loves
no.
aliens.
No, and I said the very same thing because my best friend had that realization in like a big revelation moment. He's like, there is nothing right now currently that we can do for us to all be unified as one people, except for some external threat from another world.
You know that we just heard that our new little hardware out in space received
A message.
a clearly
Yes.
intelligent, repeated message.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's,
So that's what I'm saying. I think the idea of one. I think depending on, we have no idea if we could stick ourselves in a time capsule and wake up 250 years from now,
Right.
just like people 200, the founders of this country.
Yeah.
And if they woke up in today's world, this would be an alien world to them. It would.
Right.
And it will be an alien world for us 200 years from now. We will be, if somehow you could wake up and say, good Lord,
Yeah.
what does this place turn into?
and don't be saying you didn't see it coming.
Of
We've had the
course.
revelation for over 2,000 years.
Yes,
Come
we
on.
have. That's
it's,
right.
It's just
Right.
what it is. I mean, I think we adapt and
Right.
we grow to whatever situation faces us. I mean, I mean, I don't get too much into the end of the world because, you know, I mean, Lord, we don't know what that means.
Yeah.
All of this isn't a matter of if. This is just a matter of when.
When.
And
That's right.
it's gonna be how tolerant to this change towards that end goal are we going to be, and how resistant are we going to be. It's not if, it's just how much time is it going to take.
I think there's going to be, definitely. I agree. There are forces at work right now that want to fundamentally transform America from something that it was into something different. That was said by, was it Barack Obama? Said that, and a lot of issues have come up since then, and you could see it in the presidential elections. It's nearly 50-50.
I don't.
You
really
got
think
half.
it is.
You got half the population that thinks one way, and half the population
I
thinks
think
another
that's the
way.
liberal media spinning. I think we're in the pendulum the other way, more of the conservative route.
Well, I think
because-
you. What's happening is you're getting pushback.
Yeah,
You're getting.
I think the media, the liberal media, is trying to give her a chance. I'm not so sure she's got that much of a chance right now.
Well, she's in trouble.
She's in.
She's in trouble.
Deep
When
doo-doo.
the Teamsters don't back, when I saw that,
Ooh-wee.
it was like, but that's neither here nor there.
I do think that and I'm gonna put this outside of America. I think the world is waking up in some ways to just accepting that things have to be a certain way. I think everybody's starting to get tired of being told how it's going to work.
Oh, I agree.
So
Yeah.
I definitely, and that may could be a good episode too.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
What
got-
are you tired of being told you have to deal with?
A lot of people in around the world are bucking this. I mean, you talk about China. We talk about China, but the young people in China are very much pushing back against the Chinese Communist Party
Really?
that's been running the country. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all I know is when all hell breaks loose, I'm going to take all my water and go to Stoney's because he has lots of guns.
Oh, we don't want to tell everybody that.
Sorry about that,
Yeah,
world.
we don't want to tell everybody.
Well, the question then comes in. I mean, this is kind of off topic, but I mean, do you shelter in place or do you become nomadic?
You do both. You have to do both. You have to start off. You're going to shelter in place, and then you have to move.
Thank God I watched all those episodes of Naked and Afraid.
Love that.
Well, look, back to our just some things I saw here. The average annual cost of commuting is somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000.
Wow.
Because we live in a commuting society,
Mm-hmm.
you're spending on average $2,000 to $5,000 a year.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. You spend, even if you spend $10 more a day on coffee and lunch at work, that adds up to about $2,500 per year. Eating at home costs half that amount.
Wow.
So if you're not in one of these little cities and you're out in the country, your costs are higher, but you're likely not going to be earning a higher wage. So that's the other thing. How do you navigate this idea of these 15-minute cities, Jason, with with the idea of how to bring the rural community into the picture. I mean,
I think
Does the rural community
I
come
think
into the picture?
in a perfect world, which we don't live in, if you could design a city from scratch, the fact of the matter is you would have to have all necessary essentials to the extent possible. Now, there's just some things you're not going to be able to because you can't have a university, in every city, or you would have to reduce the amount of urban centers that actually exist. And that would be the only way you could accomplish, I think, the goals of making each urban center truly a 15-minute where I literally have everything a person could possibly need or want. That they would live, born, live, and die.
Well,
in
think
that
about this.
city.
This has kind of been experimented with. If you think about it kind of in the medieval times. You had a castle in the middle.
Yep. Or
And
you
then
had a church.
And you had the church in the middle.
Yep.
You had everything around it. The farmland, the hunters, the gatherers, the people that did all the work. And when somebody attacked it, what happened? Everybody went into the castle.
Yep.
It's a smaller scale.
Right.
But there was fewer people then. But think about that now. That's kind of what they're going to have to gravitate to, is having everything kind of around the outlying areas. There's your poor people. There's your workers and your slaves. And the ultra rich, where were they?
Which was exactly my point, because you know what? You just said basically that the government's going to commandeer the rural community to be the slave of the 15-minute city.
There it is.
So
Because you got to have something to support it, unless you, within the 15-minute city, you actually incorporate. I could say the advances in agriculture. You could look at hydroponics.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I mean, on a mass scale, I could see how that could work. I mean, you could grow all the vegetables you want with hydroponics.
From what research I did on the line itself, I think it was originally supposed to be 100 miles long, and it's supposed to be segmented in like cities like that, where you can technically, if you wanted to, go from one end of the line all the way to the other, and then there's like portions of it that are sectioned out. I think it's supposed to be 500 meters tall by 200 meters wide. And I think currently it's ending at about 1.5 miles, because 100 was not going to happen, but
That may be their ultimate goal. This is just how they're going to start.
Right.
Just 1.5 miles, and then add it.
But
and then
again,
add it.
so again, you're supposed to you have this area, this portion of that you can, throughout all the floors of this, between the two areas of the both sides of it, you can live in this area. And then maybe you go all the way down to one side for a university section or a specialized hospital.
Think though how precision the attack's going to be, because we have a warring nature.
Mm-hmm.
Just think what they're going to do. They're going to take out your water filtration system, your power grid, and your hospitals.
But then this is where I get real, because you're right. But if these big 15-minute cities are going to be the hubs of all of these rich elite, who's to say we can't do the same thing? I'm not saying we're revolting right now, but
well, isn't it the desire for you to be rich and elite?
I mean, no.
Don't all of us kind of drive toward to be rich? But richer than we were before?
I can understand if I'm one of those people that live in that city, the concern, the fear, and all that. But it's just, you turn it back around. Who's to say we're not the pirates that infiltrate this $1 billion 15-minute city and then make it collapse and go, because you're ruining my life. Now we're the rebellion. We're the resistance Stoney keeps talking about. Yeah,
Demolition Man.
I'm just saying.
Demolition Man. Wesley Snipes, right?
I mean, you think of, there's been a lot of tips. What was that movie that came out that kind of touched on this a little bit? It was
Demolition Man.
Not Demolition Man. I was thinking it was where all the rich ended up in the on a spaceship, kind of orbiting Elysium.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happened? All the rich, they kind of built their own city, and the earth was polluted and unhealthy. You didn't really have health care. It was
It's just the next generation's Maui. Sorry, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Well, could be.
It's already happening. We're looking right now at developing colonies on Mars. Look, it's already happening.
Right.
Well, according to Elon Musk, he wants to go colonize Mars
because he knows things. He's not worried about Maui. He's going to Mars.
Well, the funny thing about it is I asked a question in the last episode.
He thinks the Earth is doomed.
And I listed a couple of movies, and I said, you sided with the resistance. You sided with the resistance. And I got 4 or 5 texts and emails from people saying, that's right. That's right. Why can't you see it in real life?
Yeah.
It's happening now.
It
today.
already is.
It's happening.
Right.
We're not at that point. Remember, Ronald Reagan said in the 80s, we're one generation away from losing all of our freedoms.
Yep.
We're at that point right now.
That's exactly right.
And that was 40 years ago. So 40 years from now, we're talking about it like he did, and we could be in that spot.
And your comment about being predestined into certain lives, the government is going to control the children and what they become.
That's what they want.
Yep. So,
wow.
Well,
it's been an interesting discussion.
oh man.
I mean, there's so many different rabbit holes you can go down with this topic, but I hope that we were able to really give the topic justice and really talk about what is in theory a concept, and we'll see how this plays out over time.
Oh, what a heavy episode. But to be honest, I knew this was going to happen. The second that Stoney was like, let's talk about 15-minute cities, I was like, oh, I got to buckle in for this one. It's going to be
oh, no, you were happy to talk about it.
I mean, a little bit, yeah.
It's good to talk about this. We need to air it out.
You're right.
You know?
You're right. But at the same time, there's
It's a
also
good conversation.
things of like, but anyways. If you were, I mean, I figured at some point somebody's going to probably have some frustrations and some comments they want to make on it. You can type in at Retrospect Pod, and you can find us on all the social medias and major podcasting platforms, or you can go to our email address, getoffendedtogether@gmail.com, where you can give us those more long-form feelings, and you can really type out all your frustrations there. Again, I also have the ability now to look at comments on Spotify. I didn't have that before. So on YouTube and Spotify, you scroll down, you can see the little comment section. You can give us some comments there if you feel like it. So there's ways you can get in touch with us. And until next time, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone. God bless.
See ya.
You're the best. Peace.